All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, according to the Washington Post, Bernie Sanders has privately expressed concerns to the Biden campaign about their lack of an economic populist message. According to that report, quote, Sanders has told associates that Biden is at serious risk of coming up short in the November election if he continues his vaguer, more centrist approach. The senator has identified several specific changes he'd like to see, saying Biden should talk more about health care and about his economic plans and should campaign more with figures popular among young liberals, such as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. When asked for comment, Bernie World more or less confirmed the report. Former campaign manager Faz Shakir responded with a statement that said, in part, Senator Sanders is confident that Joe Biden is in a very strong position to win this election, but nevertheless feels there are areas the campaign can continue to improve upon. He has been in direct contact with the Biden team and has urged them to put more emphasis on how they will raise wages, create millions of good-paying jobs, lower the cost of prescription drugs, and expand health care coverage. So, a few things here. First of all, Bernie obviously is 100% correct. A big, bold, FDR-like economic program would be massively popular. Here we are. Small businesses closing their doors and American families struggling while the stock market surges and billionaire wealth has gone through the roof. A clearly redistributive policy aimed squarely at the working class would win in an undeniable landslide. Just look at this polling. A full 80% of all voters support another round of direct stimulus checks to everyone making less than $100K. Find me another policy with such insanely broad support. 69% support aid to state and local government. 62% believe that the full $600 per week unemployment benefit plus up should be extended, with only 35% opposed. Meanwhile, support for Medicare for All has been steadily rising as Americans watch their health care evaporate along with their jobs, and outrageous abuses like the doctor who was charged $10,984 for a COVID test that has a cost of goods of $8. It is insanity like that, which makes you realize how deeply rotten the entire for-profit healthcare system really is. What's more, an aggressive wealth tax would also be insanely popular right now. While 40 million Americans were filing for unemployment, America's billionaires added more than $500 billion to their already massive fortunes. Even before the pandemic, 2/3 of Americans were down for some form of wealth tax. Joe's Buy American plan and messaging, it's fine, but it's a no-brainer to pledge all day, every day to tax the rich in order to provide jobs, health care, and higher wages. We are in the midst of a massive economic collapse, for God's sakes, but he campaigns like these are just some normal economic times. Actually, I would say we've heard about jobs in this election even less than the average, which is nuts, considering that more than 1 million Americans filed for unemployment insurance last week alone. I mean, even the stuff Joe actually does support, he barely talks about. When was the last time you heard him tout his support for a $15 minimum wage? By the way, if a politician doesn't talk about something relentlessly on the trail, it means it is 100% not going to happen. Joe is extraordinarily lucky that Trump is too dumb to give Americans free money, instead preferring to pretend that coronavirus is over, and what you should really be worried about is an Antifa cell moving into the McMansion next door. Now, second, it's pretty interesting that Bernie World intentionally leaked this to the Post and kind of semi-confirmed it. Bernie himself went on MSNBC and said both that, the report's not true, but also, Biden kind of needs to get his act together on this one. Take a listen.
Of course they're not true. I mean, look, what I have said privately is what I have said publicly. And that is, I think Biden's in an excellent position to win this election. But I think we have got to do more as a campaign than just go after Trump. Trump is a disaster. I think most people know it. But we also have to give people a reason to vote for Joe Biden. And Joe has some pretty strong positions on the economy. And I think we should be talking about that more than we have. Now, we have done, Ali, 8 battleground states virtual rallies, talking to, several million people. And I think what people want to hear is what Joe is going to do to raise the minimum wage. And he supports a $15 an hour minimum wage. What he's going to do to make sure that we create millions of good paying jobs in this country. And he has a very strong plan for the infrastructure. He knows that we can create jobs combating climate change, which God knows we need to do, seeing what's going on in the West Coast right now. They want equal pay for equal work. They want us to expand health care to as many people as possible, lower the cost of prescription drugs. I think those are some of the issues that people want to hear a little bit more from the Biden campaign about.
So look, this isn't really an attempt to get Biden to change his tune or embrace more ambitious policies. Bernie's got a direct line of communication, doesn't need to leak to the Post or go on weekend MSNBC to try to get the point across. He knows that Biden isn't going to change strategies. That guy is obsessed with winning over like the John Kasich and Rick Snyder coalition, and he's terrified of even being caught in a photograph alongside AOC. No. The point of this report and Bernie's direct comments is to lay down a marker if Democrats do lose to Trump to explain the real reason why it happened. Because when the moment called for bold action, Joe went with nothing will fundamentally change instead. You know that the Dem establishment and their media handmaidens will do everything they can to say that the real problem was the left, that the Bernie wing of the party dragged poor Joe too far left and tarnished the good reputation of the Democratic Party, dooming them to defeat. Of course, this is absolutely absurd, but shame has never stopped them before. And sad as it is to say, there's a pretty good chance that the Dems went too far left narrative would actually win the day, allowing Dems to then move even further right in response to a Biden loss. But finally, and this is what really kills me, there's a very clear and obvious reason why Biden doesn't think he has to piss off his donors by offering any real economic populism. No pressure was put on him whatsoever by anyone on the left, and especially by Bernie. When Bernie quickly bowed out without making any real demands, it was game over for getting a remotely progressive presidency. That wasn't just a disaster for the left. It was a disaster for the country, and also a potential disaster for those who actually want to defeat Donald Trump. When Bernie got out and everyone fell in line, the thought was that this unity would help Biden to win. But now we see what a poor calculation that actually was. The Bernie coalition is dispirited and unmotivated, and struggling Americans don't have much of a reason to show up. Bernie thought he was doing his friend Joe a favor, but his acquiescence helped leave the door wide open for a Trump reelect. And Sagar, I was curious what you made of these comments. I mean, obviously Bernie is totally right that Joe should be embracing more of these economic populist elements. But also at this point, like, the die is cast. There's no way that that guy is going to shift his campaign.
It's funny. I'm making almost an exact same similar point in my radar. And that's really what it comes down to for Joe and for Trump. It's done in terms of strategy. It's not going to change at this point. It's exactly 50 days to go until the election. He has made his choice. He's going all in on these white suburbanites and all these other things. Now, what I think we both said, is that what the major error in that calculus is that you're playing within an existing electorate when there's a massive another electorate there that's just waiting, hoping, praying for somebody to come and help them. But both sides have decided to mostly write those people off. They're not going to be included in this. So if you accept that premise, I think the Biden strategy is entirely rational. It's very risky. We have showed there are many different areas in which things could not go the right way, in which, Florida could tip over because of lost Hispanics. All of those caveats baked in. But you have a large governing coalition of suburban whites. It's a great strategy for you. And you get to bring in all your friends from the Obama administration, and you get to cash millions, billions, really, in Wall Street and Silicon Valley and Hollywood checks. It's like a dream come true, right? I mean, this is kind of what the Obama 2012 campaign was for a lot of these people. Like, it's a jobs program for the neoliberal establishment.
Yeah.
And they love it. I mean, if they found a way in order to win a popular election and get, continue their grift, why would they ever stop? And Bernie never imposed costs. This is the same thing on Trump. Trump largely pays no price outside of electorally within his own governing coalition and within the media, on Fox, for straying away from what he promised. When is the last time you saw a segment on Fox about manufacturing jobs in Pennsylvania or coal? Now, you might see it on MSNBC, but the truth is on MSNBC,
it's irrelevant.
All their viewers hate coal miners too, right? Like, they're just like Hillary Clinton people, and it's irrelevant because nobody who actually cares wants to watch it. If you can't impose costs, you're irrelevant. You don't matter. It's
just totally insane, and I will never get over it. Like, looking at the state of the economy and how many people are struggling, and looking at, the utter failure in Washington to act, looking at the overwhelming public support for doing a lot more, not just a little more. There's a report, France is paying their people out for like another year because of the impacts of coronavirus. So we could easily be doing that as well. There's nothing to stop it. And yet, the campaign is going on as if none of this is really happening, as if there is no economic collapse, as if there is no economic fallout. Neither camp is seizing on these issues, and it's completely insane to me. But you're right, they don't have to. They don't have to, and the Biden people would rather take the risk of losing than actually offer something that's going to be uncomfortable for their donors. That's going to shake up any of the power structures whatsoever.
Yeah, it's the same thing true for the Republicans, right? Like McConnell and them would rather lose the Senate than they would pass a large economic stimulus bill. They really would. I mean, they would much rather lose the Senate, be a permanent minority, pass, be the obstruction regime, even though Biden and his team basically said they're going to nuke the filibuster. They're like, no, they're not actually going to do it, and then they can be they are much more comfortable being a permanent minority than they ever were governing. And that's the central problem with all of them.
Yeah. So well said. All right, Sire, looking forward to your radar. That is next.